This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 174. Tonight I'm joined by Kodra.
Howdy.
Phelan.
Hey.
And Ashgar.
Hi.
And this is the point at which
was that disorienting?
It was very disorienting.
That was disorienting because Ashgar's in the wrong place in the list because reasons. But anyway, now you understand just how much I rely on reading the list on the left-hand side of my screen. We're down some people. Tam is being a globetrotter, and Grace is working crazy long hours right now and isn't able to make it. So we also don't really have much of a script because we were talking before the show started that most of us are playing games that we really shouldn't be talking about because they're going to be games of the month. I mean, clearly
It's a thing.
Yeah, I mean...
It happens when we make mistakes and plan ahead.
Like, I've been playing largely Destiny 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn and Divinity Original Sin 2 and a little bit of Guild Wars. Well, Guild Wars 2.
I've been playing a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn and a lot of Through the Ages.
So you talked a little bit about Through the Ages last week.
Uh-huh.
Do you have additional things to discuss about Through the Ages since you've been playing so much of it?
It's a really good game. Like, I highly recommend people check it out. I don't know what this is me getting to play it again for the first time in a while, but I put hundreds of games into this.
As in the mobile client?
Not in the mobile client, but there was a previous website that you could play online, and I played a lot of that. I'm getting to play with my friends from back in Georgia, though, so that's exciting.
That is really cool. And I noticed there were a handful of Ladashavatal games on iOS, at least.
I know that there is Codenames and Galaxy Trucker and Through the Ages now.
How does Codenames work as a mobile game?
I have no idea. I didn't pick it up because that didn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah, the only thing for Codenames I had seen was basically it took care of the cards for you, or it allowed you to like look at the secret cards or something like that.
Oh, but it doesn't interesting.
Yeah, like at least the one I looked at was that way. There might be another version. Like I did see the Galaxy Trucker is 100% by the same people that do Through the Ages.
Are these actually published on mobile stores by CGE?
Yes. I mean, so Vlado was actually a video game developer before he switched to board games. So this might just be him back in his comfort zone.
I mean, so is Serlin.
Yeah, but Vlado's a good game designer.
Yeah, I know. I just knew that would cause some specific reactions.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about Serlin. He's got a new game. It had a failed crowdfunding campaign, so it's on Steam Early Access at the moment. As far as I can tell, hardcore people are not interested in this game because they don't like Serlin, and he can't actually market it to anybody else.
I'm fascinated by this. Why do hardcore people not like Serlin?
Because that book did not win anybody any friends, and also because they don't really like the changes he made to Street Fighter 2 Turbo. He did the rebalancing for the HD Remix version of that.
AKA the version that people just generally don't like at all.
Right.
I will say Fantasy Strike
between
has
that
some
and
interesting looking characters.
Also not helping is his reputation for not being a nice person. So I don't know. Fantasy Strike might be an interesting game, but at this point he'd probably have to give it to me for me to try to play it.
Yeah.
At least I thought there were some interesting characters.
It amuses me that he tried to crowdfund it and it didn't succeed. But it exists anyway. It's like, we don't want your game. And yeah, he's giving, yeah.
I mean, it existed before the crowdfunding campaign because he has a Patreon for it.
Right.
But
so presumably somebody wants the game.
In fairness, based on the things that I was told, it sounds like a game I would be at least somewhat interested in.
That could very well be.
It is a game that is all about being a fighting game with removing the various difficult button maneuvers for special attacks.
Yes. The controls are not dissimilar to Smash Brothers, except with a few more buttons.
But there's the problem right there. Like, a quote-unquote Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat type fan likes doing the button combos to do things.
Well,
I mean, at least that's kind of the part of it that made it really cool, was like, I can do this secret move, and now I can throw a fireball.
Yeah.
But at the point in which you're like, eventually though, that becomes the baseline. You are expected to be able to do all these things without even really thinking about it. And therefore his argument, which is actually a pretty good argument, is that if you're supposed to do all these things without even thinking about it, then why have to think about it? We can just put that on a direction and a button.
Yeah. Because game communities really love gatekeeping.
They do.
That is a huge problem in fighting games.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like, it is a huge part of fighting games. Like, there's the whole, learning the ropes, and while you're learning the ropes, people are going to mercilessly wreck you in the process.
Well, but that's the thing, is this is removing some of the gatekeeping, but it sounds like it's still trying to be a game with extremely extensive combo chains.
The longest combo chain is like 3 hits.
Really? Interesting.
Because your health bar is only like 6 HP long.
Oh.
Yeah, and please note, like, I'm not saying gatekeeping is a great thing. It's just fighting games are definitely a community that have that.
I just do feel like if you wanted this thing, Pokken DX released 2 days ago.
What is Pokken DX?
A Pokemon fighting game, not dissimilar to Tekken.
Okay.
What?
This came out for the Wii U, and I'm guessing nobody in this channel noticed.
You're correct.
You're correct.
Wait, it came wait. It came out for the Wii U?
Yes, months ago.
Yeah,
months ago. Came out for the Switch yesterday.
Ah.
And like, I feel like if you want a fighting game that is still complicated and has simple execution, maybe go there.
Also, you get to play with adorable Pokemons.
Also, you get to play as Pokemon.
Like, the premise of that game just seemed really weird to me.
Pokken?
Yes.
I mean, it's just normal Pokemon fighting, right?
I guess, sorta.
You have trainers, and they stand to the sides, and your Pokemon fight each other. No different than the normal games, except that,
it's not turn-based, it's actually a fighting game.
It's not turn-based, and it's actually a fighting game.
I remember they released, like, some really horribly uncomfortable-looking controllers as well.
They did, but the Wii U Pro Controller, the Switch Pro Controller exists, so I'm not sure why you would use those.
Right, exactly. But, like, I can remember looking at those designs, and, like, I don't even know what they're going for. It's like a silver boomerang.
Well, they matched the arcade machine, because, yes, there really was an arcade machine, although, Japan only.
Well, of course there was.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the country that has, non-retro arcades.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have arcades, it's a growing industry, but they're all retro.
Retro or ticket-based, and when they're ticket-based, they tend to be mobile games.
Yep.
Which really are the new coming of arcades anyway.
They kind of are.
I was listening to a thing on NPR, and they were talking about, like, there has been a thing where people are porting indie games, like the 2D retro-styled indie games, to a custom cabinet-type setup, and then putting them into some of the retro barcades and arcades, so that you can have the arcade experience, but play, like, Cave Story, or play, like, I don't know, Downwell, or...
That'd be fun. I should one day try and beat Downwell. I managed to get to the final boss, and that was sort of... That broke me of that game. Similar story to FTL. I don't know if anyone in here ever beat FTL, but the final boss was a little over the top for me.
What? The final boss in FTL is either incredibly difficult or absurdly easy, depending on whether you got the necessary equipment on the way to the end of the game.
Yeah, I feel like that's also true in Downwell.
That sort of tends to be a roguelike thing in boss fights in general.
Yeah. It's like, if you know what you're in for and you prepare for it properly and get the right random encounters to get what you need, then, yeah, it's no problem.
I feel like roguelikes need to, I don't know, that maybe procedural is not the only way to do things, and maybe have, like, a blend of procedural and specific content.
See,
I'm pretty sure that's blasphemy.
Okay. No.
I mean, no. I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of roguelikes actually do.
But I also think that the trick with roguelikes is allowing the character to get to slowly get more powerful through plays. Like, this is what happened in...
So that's a thing that is becoming popular, but is really not core to the roguelike experience.
It's true.
Really, the thing is that you become better. Like, I can beat Risk of Rain fairly easily now, and it hasn't gotten any easier.
But
it's mostly through learning all the things that can happen and the enemies and so on and so forth. Like, yeah.
I feel like Rogue Legacy did a great job of making me not feel like I was wasting my time.
Rogue Legacy was great. So was Moonhunters.
Yeah.
Moonhunters was really fun in that regard as well. Like, you, over time, slowly got different things unlocked that opened up new paths.
It's a little funny. I've been playing a game called a little bit. There's an early access game called Tangle, which is more of a traditional roguelike in that it is turn-based and moves when, like, enemies move when you move, tile-based, so on and so forth.
Okay.
But it has a progression system somewhat similar to Rogue Legacy in that you can earn some upgrades for your town, and when your hero dies, they can, like, your town improvements stay, any gold you stash still stays, but that character and anything that had on them is gone. There's also a separate difficulty mode where none of that happens, and you start from scratch every time.
So how would you compare this game to...
Tales of Majel? Tales of Middle-earth?
Tales of Middle-earth, yes.
It seems to be simpler in some ways. Like, that game has a lot going on.
Majel?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also more straightforward. Like, there's not a whole bunch of different dungeons, and you're just going sort of in one direction.
That's probably okay.
It also has a class system that reminds me of FF5's, in that as you advance in a class, you learn abilities, and then you can go back to town and change your class, and you can keep your abilities, but each class has innate passives that you can't take from class to class.
Ah, so you might want to try and get an ability from one class and use it on another.
Yep.
But the stuff you learn can't be the passives. Like, you can't learn dual wield.
You can learn some passives, and you have 4 slots for passives, but there are also some innate traits that are unique to a class. Like, the plant mage, whatever it is, gets some health and energy back when its main summon dies, and you can't take that to a different class.
So, like, that's the core thing for the plant mage.
Right. In addition to some classes that make sense, they also have a gambler class, which draws cards and does random things, and I can't imagine anybody possibly winning with it, but I'm sure someone has.
I mean, people beat NetHack as the tourist.
I'm not sure whether I think this is more extreme than that or not, because the tourist at least starts with, like, a charge card, if I remember correctly.
You start with a credit card, you can pick locks with it.
You can also, I think, if I remember correctly, use it to charge wands and things, because puns.
I don't know. I kind of feel like the basic one doesn't. The Platinum Yandorian Express card certainly can. It's awesome.
Oh, right.
But that's the artifact for the tourist class. You don't get that for a while unless you wish for it.
You can wish for your own class artifact?
Yeah.
Huh.
Or for other classes, class artifact. I mean, that's usually what you would do is if you're a different class and you really wanted the Yandorian Express card, you'd wish for it. As long as you're not, like, the wrong alignment.
And now I'm remembering what nonsense NetHack was.
Oh, it's incredible nonsense. It is a perfect example of there is a lot to learn about this game, and as you learn more and more about the game, you get better at it. And or the more you read the wiki. Because, of course, there's one of those now.
I mean, I feel like wikis changed games in general.
Yes, immensely.
I mean, pre-wikis, there was always game facts, and, like, pre-game facts, there was, like... God, there was an AOL group, and I forget the name of it.
Yeah,
that basically, like, traded in text-based walkthroughs of games.
Yeah, Prodigy had basically the same thing back in the ye olden days when I was active on it.
I'm sure there was some alt.dot board for video games before that.
Yeah, I think these were basically, like, distilled versions of Usenet posts. Like, I was in a Game Genie Usenet forum that, or message board, but whatever, where, like, back when I was playing Final Fantasy VI, aka Final Fantasy III, we were trying desperately to figure out a way to get General Leo in your party with the correct abilities without breaking the game. And, like, there were so many ways of going at that.
Yeah, because you totally
can do it.
Just
now.
like if you get Eris back in Final Fantasy VII, you could totally
do
that,
it,
right?
yeah. but you could only get it for like under certain circumstances, and they all like centered around what was the leader of the returners? Bannon, yeah. They all basically centered around using Bannon's character and then like swapping the sprite and swapping the abilities. So you technically had Bannon, but it just looked like General Leo.
So you can actually get General Leo, like proper General Leo, in your party now for an extended period of time. In FF6, thanks to a glitch that was discovered later.
Oh, okay.
The airship glitch lets you break a whole bunch of things in half.
Oh, yeah, I remember that long post that you showed me.
Yes. You can get General Leo in your party without a game genie. And there are a lot of things he can do. Basically, as soon as you get tossed into a screen where you need to choose your party, like when you split your party, then he's gone.
Yeah, it crashes it out.
It doesn't crash. It just, you can't pick him, so he won't be in your party from that point forward.
Yeah, I think that was one of the problems that happened with the Game Genie version 2, is you had to make sure you did it after the party split up, like after everybody was already back together.
The problem there is you split in Kefka's Tower, so that means you can't be in the game with him.
Yeah, this reminds me of a bunch of AOL groups I was a part of early on, desperately trying to figure out how to get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. Because surely they had to hide it somewhere. Like, it's not a Zelda game if you don't get the Triforce, right?
I remember a similar batch of them revolving around, like, another Colossus in Shadow of the Colossus.
So, maybe I'm forgetting things, but when did you get the Triforce in A Link to the Past?
I mean, at the very end, I thought?
I'm pretty sure you do. It's been a while since I've beaten it, but I think you do.
I don't know. I just remember it was a big thing in AOL, like, forums. The internet used to be really weird when you were an AOL user.
I mean, I was an AOL user for a period of time until I figured out how to get, actual dial-up internet access. I've probably talked about that at length before, about just how damn expensive it was. But if I remember correctly, I was paying like $60 a month for dial-up, and 20 of it was to the phone company to get unlimited long distance, and 40 of it was to an ISP for unlimited internet. Internet was a weird thing back then. I also remember using Kali a lot, which was like a TCP/IP IPX SPX emulator that allowed you to play like all the old IPX SPX games over TCP/IP.
You have gone way past my history now.
Yeah, well, like, all the original games used IPX SPX, like, so Doom and Rise of the Triad, and all those first games used that as a networking protocol, because that was what Novell Networks ran on, which was most of what everyone had for a LAN. And then things quickly shifted, and I think the first pure TCP/IP game I ever played was Diablo, or at least the first one from Blizzard. And back then, you couldn't play Command and Conquer, you couldn't play any of these games without using this third-party tool that you would, meet up in their little meeting lobby room thing with your friends, and then it would launch a pseudo TCP/IP network based on its little protocol and play it over the internet. Dalen, you have to remember this.
I didn't play a lot of games over the internet back then.
So I played...
I did some, LAN stuff, like a little bit when I was, but...
Didn't Warcraft 2 have the option to put in a phone number? Am I misremembering that?
Maybe Warcraft 1 did. I don't think so. Like you had basically... I don't remember what the options were, but it didn't have TCP/IP until they re-released it as Warcraft 2 BattleNet Edition.
Yeah, they had something, though, and I remember trying to get it to work for me and my friend.
So, I used to do that with Doom, except for I would have to use a third-party terminal software, and then I would use it to dial in and connect us up, and, we'd chat and say, okay, I'm launching Doom now, and then it would launch it over the phone connection that we just established.
Wow, I definitely wasn't doing anything like that at like age 8.
Yeah, no, the early days of like it pissed off our parents too because like it would tie up our phone, but we would be able to play Doom co-op because really a 2-person deathmatch wasn't that great. When we played deathmatch, it largely involved him running away from me and trying to hide. God, that's a long time ago.
Yes, you're definitely dating yourself here.
I know. I remember in college, though, we had pretty lax computer lab rules, and individual computers were admins. So, for the most part, there were a lot of evenings where we would go up there and all install the same game on every computer in the lab and have big LAN games going on.
I mean, I also did this in high school.
Yes, I think this is the difference between our ages.
But in high school, we had some software that was supposedly locking things down to try and prevent you from doing it.
The word supposedly there really says everything.
And you found a way around?
Well, so the problem is, it locked down certain program executions, but it didn't lock down Notepad, and it didn't lock down any file properties. And the only way it ran was by being launched from autoexec.bat. So I just did a notepad to autoexec.bat and removed that line. Computer security.
You were probably, kind of just commented it out.
I mean, I think we did comment it out because we wanted to put it back in, like, after we were done.
You don't want to leave obvious evidence.
But yes, we played a lot of Counter-Strike in high school that way. Our high school had a big, like, cultural festival, and we just spent the whole day in the computer lab because we weren't doing none of us were doing much for the cultural festival, and we just played CS all day.
I mostly missed the CS craze.
It was great.
I remember, what was it, Dust 2?
Yep, DE Dust and DE Dust 2.
I also missed the Counter-Strike craze, mostly from the other side. I think the first game I played over the internet was Unreal Tournament 2004.
Was that the one that had, like, the asymmetric objectives?
It was.
I never played it, but I hear it was very good.
That game was a lot of fun. Although I think we played Onslaught more than Assault.
What is Onslaught?
Onslaught was basically a point capture mode. Except the goal was to trying to build a chain to the center, I believe. So you get power for your base by capturing points that led to the center.
I remember this mode, yeah. I remember there were vehicles and turrets and things like that.
That was the mode that had a lot of vehicles in it for the most part. Assault was the one that was asymmetric, where you have a team attacking and a team defending. And based on how long they take, that's how long you have to repeat that from the other side. When did CS 1.6 come out anyway?
Oh boy. I should remember this. I want to say it was like my middle school, so 2000?
Yeah, that was 2000.
I was about to say, I remember because I was, I played through 1.4, 1.5, and then a little bit of 1.6. And 1.6 was, it was controversial. Shields were a controversial topic for a while.
Yeah, I entirely missed Counter-Strike. And by the time CS Source came out, I was playing Halo.
Ah, Halo. I played a lot of that game. I'm always a little sad that the original game did not get a good multiplayer release. Like, I played a ton of multiplayer, but I also understood I was in a weird situation where it came out my freshman year of college. Or my senior year of high school, so everyone was excited to play it in my freshman year of college. And so we had like 16-player games of that every single night. I'm sad that they... I understand why they did it, but I'm sad that they nerfed the pistol into the ground.
There is no point in having weapons you can pick up on a map if the weapons you start with are better than those.
But they weren't. Like, so... The best all-around weapon was a pistol, but there were situations where you would want other weapons. And so it was worth seeking out those other weapons so that you could get into those situational advantages where you would win the fights. But for most mid-range skirmishes, a pistol is the best. And at every other distance, there's maybe one weapon that's better than it. Like at long range, a sniper's better than a pistol. At close range, a shotgun's better than a pistol. And so, depending on the position you're playing on the map, you will probably want to have a pistol and one specialty weapon.
I played a lot more Halo 2 than 1, so I was thinking sword for close range.
Yeah, well, yeah, sword doesn't exist.
Right.
In Halo 1. But you also had you also had rockets in Halo 1, and those were bonkers good. Like, you definitely wanted to control the rocket spawn.
That was a big thing in, a lot of the early games like Doom. Whoever got the rocket launcher was probably going to decimate everyone else.
UT definitely had that going on too. Unless you could get close to them with a flat cannon or something.
My favorite map had a trick that I discovered because everything in Halo has collision, and the rockets in one level are in this pit it's designed to make rockets really, really hard to get because you're putting yourself out in the open. But I was able to place a grenade such that the rockets would blast up out of the door, out of the pit and out of a door right into my waiting hands. So I always had rockets on this level. It was awesome.
I think probably my all-time favorite shooter, like from an older sense, is Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. I loved that game, and nothing has really quite since replaced it. Like, it just did some stuff differently that nobody else has done, really, other than the same company making a splash of damage doing other games. Like, they had a Quake Enemy Territory, and Brink that no one liked, but I liked, was kind of doing the same thing, where you have, like, lots of buildable objectives that you have to use to get your way across a map. And to some extent, like, a lot of the map types in Overwatch are greatly simplified versions of things that existed in Wolfenstein ET. Like Payload, for example, there was a map that was precisely that kind of thing in Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, where you were basically had to escort a tank all the way to this vault, use the tank to blow open the vault door, and then load the gold from the vault into a truck and escort that truck out of town. And there were engineers and medics and, multiple classes that you used to get your way through that sequence of events. And, like, the enemy team just had to try and prevent it from happening. And there were specific choke points that you could sit and use for guarding the objective or keeping the objective from actually happening.
I feel like I'm not sure Overwatch owes any of that to Enemy Territory, or possibly Team Fortress 2 owes it to Enemy Territory. Because Payload in Overwatch seems more similar to Payload in TF2 than anything you just described.
Right, it does. But TF2's Payload came out after Wolfenstein ET's Payload, so...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so, yeah, like, there's some borrowing there, but I'm just saying, like TF2's game modes were greatly simplified game modes, and they're fun. But, like, I really enjoyed the engineer aspect of actually having to get someone out there to build an objective, and I guess that's why I like playing Torbjorn in Overwatch, because I like being the builder class to go build the bridge so you can get the thing across the bridge, or, build a defensive turret so that you can help protect the objective. So I feel like that whole sequence went way deeper than I expected it to. So, something else that I talked about earlier in the show was that I have been playing some Guild Wars 2, and this week, Path of Fire released, and actually it released yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that.
Yeah,
officially.
Yesterday, I guess, officially.
I am not caught up to a point where I can actually feel like I should play the Path of Fire content.
Me neither, but I might do the first mission to get him out.
I am tempted to do that.
I'm also tempted to do this thing, but I've been working my way through Living Story 2, and I feel like there's a thing that needs to be talked about, is that ArenaNet is really bad at giving you any indication of how long you're actually going to be doing something, especially in the living story content, because the next objective may be go talk to somebody and then go somewhere else and talk to somebody else and then you're done. Or it may be you just signed up for like an hour of your life doing an event. And it doesn't really give you any indication as to which one you're actually going to get.
Mm-hmm.
The only indication is sometimes you get the notification that, hey, you're going into a personal instance.
Yeah, but some of those have been really short, too.
Some of those are just talk to the person.
And then some of them are massive.
Let's go.
Some of them are fly around in an airship for 2 hours fighting a tentacle dragon.
Or, go into this crazy dream world and fight a whole bunch of parts of your consciousness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or throw your body at the horrible dude that's been like a villain since the beginning of the game that, oh my god, I've been wanting to kill forever and ever. And god, that fight. I got very angry at my computer today fighting Caudicus.
The problem is like there's a lot of these that I will be completely broken by the time I finish, and it's just me slowly whittling it down.
That is exactly what happened when I was fighting Caudicus. Like, I would port back into the tiny little room where I could barely see what was going on because my camera got stuck on the wall all the time, and before I had even finished, the room had even finished loading, I got caught in an AoE and was dead again.
That was me during the Pale Tree encounter with the Nightmare Dragons.
Oh, yes.
By the time I would load in, I was usually dead again because I was completely broken.
All I have to say is that you have not done the end of Heart of Thorn story, is you get a choice of 3 people to take in. Do not take the one that you have no reason to trust, is all I have to say about that.
The one who stole a thing that it was my job to protect?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I didn't take her. So I guess I made the right choice, because I kind of wondered, because Bram was kind of rough.
She's perfectly fine. It's just that the encounter you take for doing that is awful.
Right.
It is ridiculous and terrible.
Ugh. Because the encounter for Kanek wasn't that bad. The encounter for Bram, I had some trouble with until I finally bugged it somehow, and it became absurdly easy.
The remaining encounter, the one you didn't do, is a bullet hell.
Oh, yay!
Like a whole bunch of things coming at you that you have to dodge. I don't like this game's version of bullet hell.
There's good reasons not to like this game's version of bullet hell.
Yeah, Guild Wars 2 seems to go a little overboard sometimes with the things for you to dodge. I mean, yes, I can dodge out of the way of things. I can do this twice, and then I can't do it again for a while. So
right, exactly.
Maybe cool it on this.
It comes to a point where you don't have enough stamina to keep doing this craziness. I mean, in like the fight in the lair, that one was a whole problem where I don't know, like it was a battle of attrition where slowly, bit by bit, something was draining my health so that if I got hit once, it was just over.
I did not have that experience.
Really? No, that was absolutely the problem I had.
I did not have that experience at all. The hardest part for me was there are things that steal your buffs in one of those encounters. Mm-hmm. And as a guardian, they also steal your Aegis.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to hit them twice to get rid of them.
Yeah, because you have to use that against them by getting a quote-unquote buff that makes your health 1.
I actually found most of the Living Story encounters to be kind of fun, except for the maze, which I thought was really stupid.
I got super lost.
I killed the big thing that chased you around, like, I don't know how many times.
Yes.
So many times. Like, there were
actually
times
an achievement for not killing it.
I don't even understand why that's a thing.
You run away. I mean, that's what it's intended to do.
Yeah, I mean, it won't stay dead. So.
No.
But it was easier for me to just turn around, make it dead, and then, keep going about my business.
Yeah.
I've heard decent things about the Path of Fire so far. Like, one person that's a Guild Wars YouTuber was saying that it took them like 6 hours before they felt like they were even vaguely close to done with like the first little area.
The maps are big once again. I don't know if they're as vertical as the Heart of Thorns ones.
I've heard it's not. It's not as vertical. It's not as...
Thank goodness. I mean, it's a desert, so...
It is a little harder to justify than the jungle, yeah.
I've also heard there's a lot of stuff that you're going to functionally want to go back and revisit once you have additional mounts.
That makes sense, since they have wildly varying abilities. Like, you get the raptor first, and it can jump really far, but it can't jump that high.
So, how vertical are mounts? How do mounts interact with the Heart of Thorns zones?
I have no idea.
I mean, you can run around with them anywhere, so...
Anywhere except some jumping puzzles.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I'm curious how they are at, like, you know, the verticality of Heart of Thorns zones.
I'm guessing they aren't going to get you anywhere that you needed updrafts to get to. Unless for some reason they decide the skimmer should let you ride updrafts. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know.
Now, I did hear something about that the mounts aren't account bound. I mean, not like the mount achievement things aren't account based, they're character based. And that kind of concerns me a little bit.
They're masteries, so I know they're not character based. I don't know what part of them would be. Possibly the unlock for each mount is character based.
Mm.
And then you can use the masteries once you have the mount. I don't know. I have not had access to a computer that can really play Guild Wars 2 for the past week.
Yeah, you're in a weird out-of-pocket situation. I mean, I haven't played much Guild Wars 2 lately because reasons. Different reasons, but reasons.
Do these reasons maybe rhyme with Destiny?
These reasons rhyme with Destiny. But yeah, no, it's... I decided to start trying to trace my way through the content that I had missed at this point, and I just kept running into problems with the general server instability of getting disconnected in the middle of doing something and then having to redo the whole thing over again.
So I've been having a lot of frustrations similar to that, but not because server instability, because I keep dying a lot. I'm dying a lot in Horizon Zero Dawn.
I mean, yeah, that's a thing.
Specifically, there are certain fights in this game that are kind of boss fighty type things. Mostly anything that you can override with the Sigma Cauldron, I want to say it is. Because those things have way too many hit points and do way too much damage. Like, fighting them takes about 5 to 10 minutes of continuous perfection. And I'm not sure if I just haven't figured out the right ways to fight them or not, but it seems like it's a dicey experience every single time. And while I'm loving the game, that's kind of frustrating. Like, frustrating to the point where there were some fights where I was like, I have to put the controller down and walk away now.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like it's another game. I don't know how in-depth we want to go into it, but I feel like it's another game similar to Final Fantasy 15, where until you get certain abilities unlocked, like, the fighting just doesn't quite click yet.
Yeah, I think I have all of those abilities unlocked, but like, even with everything unlocked, fighting a Thunderjaw is still fighting a Thunderjaw, unless I'm missing something.
You are clearly much further into the game than I am. I cannot help you.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like, some of what you're expressing is some of what ultimately got me to stop playing Elder Scrolls Online as the primary game for me. Just because, like, it felt like I had to be on too much. And I don't know how to express that in a better way. It's just like, sometimes I don't want every fight to be a epic battle of making sure you're blocking what needs to be blocked and making sure you're interrupting what needs to be interrupted.
Right. Yeah.
And like, it's fun. It's really fun. But after a while, it kind of grates on your nerves to where when every encounter is, well, I got to do these things or I'm going to die.
Yeah. I much prefer, a particular enemy starts out difficult or maybe even shows up as kind of a boss, and then between learning how it works and or getting new tools, it becomes another thing you deal with. I felt like Hollow Knight did that really well.
So, that first mini-boss in Hollow Knight?
Yeah.
Like the one night thing?
Yeah, that guy.
I think I died to that guy 5 or 6 times. And then, immediately after that, he starts showing up as a common enemy.
Yeah.
But I think I only died to those versions, like, maybe once. because of how much I had to try to figure out how to fight the one.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, like, for me, a lot of it is just how long the fight takes. Endurance at a very difficult fight can be very frustrating for me. And it's because I love Dark Souls, but a lot of those boss fights, when you finally beat them, are not very long.
Well, I feel like there's a significant difference between I am failing because I don't know the thing. And whatever that thing is that makes this easier, either I know that I'm not supposed to do this or I'm supposed to do this. And if you do those things, then you can just rip through them. Like, that's a different thing than this is a numbing battle of wills.
I also feel like some of the fights are less readable in that game. And readability of a fight is really important. Like, being able to see what is on the screen and know what is going on. Like, you are fighting big giant monsters, but because you're fighting big giant monsters, sometimes, like, their entire hitbox is above you and you can't see what they're doing, which isn't great.
So, like, another fight that I can think of that just felt like this numbing battle of wills where I had to execute perfectly or I died was Midgardsormr in Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah.
When I did it, probably...
I told you, I took the FF7 approach to that fight.
I
got on the chocobo and ran past it.
I just ground it out, and it took forever. And I was always just on the brink of dying, and then finally, after a period of time, we won.
I don't find those enjoyable, so I decided not to.
Wait, which Midgardsormr fight?
There's a Midgardsormr right outside of one of the caves you're supposed to go to. I want to say with Iris.
Up near the waterfall.
In not the first mandatory royal weapon, but like the second one.
Okay.
And you don't have to fight him for that.
Not at all.
No, you can just run past. But
and he's probably a lot higher level than you.
Intended to just run past him.
I'm stubborn sometimes.
You're intended to come back later and kill him because you do want drops from him later on.
What?
I don't remember what. Midgard's
probably some amazing food.
Yeah, it's a cooking thing. It's like one of the really good recipes requires it.
I'm sure it probably dropped for me and is sitting in my inventory, but
I'm pretty sure it's a guaranteed drop. Yeah,
it was a mind-numbing battle where I was constantly on the brink of death until I wasn't, and he was dead. But again, that's a situation where, no, I was absolutely probably not supposed to be doing this thing that I was doing, but I thought I was, so.
Yeah, that fight is less awful if you do it at, level 50.
I think I was somewhere in the 15-ish range.
15 to 20 when you first get there.
Yep, somewhere in there.
And I'm really sort of hoping that Monster Hunter World is a situation where you need to learn how to fight it, not it's just a long, drawn-out battle that takes forever.
In both columns there.
I was about to say, I watched a floor demo of a Monster Hunter fight, and that thing took forever.
I mean, the floor demo took 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's a long time to be fighting at a pretty high level.
The time limit for almost all fun hunts is 50 minutes.
Maybe that's not a game for me.
But you can.
Yeah, and it's easy to die and you only have so many deaths. We'll see. I'm going to give this game a shot because I really do like this concept. But it sounds like I might not have the patience for this game.
I think it's fun. I'm really looking forward to playing it on something that is, higher resolution than the 3DS, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about that comment is I don't think my problem with the 3DS is the resolution. I think my problem is just how generally uncomfortable playing on a 3DS is for me. Because even with an XL model, it's still a relatively small device.
Yeah, I can see that. You are not a relatively small man.
No, I have really big hands. I do. I really do have big hands.
Speaking of big hands, did you see that the original Xbox controller is coming back?
What?
I saw. Yeah, they're remaking a redo of the Duke.
Yep.
As an Xbox One controller, I'm assuming PC compatible.
And PC compatible, yeah. It has been approved and sent off for tooling.
I'm probably going to get one of these just to have one.
That is okay. Is that even comfortable for you?
It's not bad. Yeah, actually, it was. I thought the original Xbox controller was pretty comfortable.
I thought the angles on that thing.
The angles were weird, but I mean, like, as far as hand feel of actually having it sitting in my hand, I thought were not bad.
Like, I like the size of that controller. I also have big hands, but I also felt like it needed to be flatter in the back because the wings are really, really deep, and that was awkward.
Well, so not long before that was a controller design, I was big into using the Dreamcast, and that was a super awkward controller, so maybe at the time that influenced my feels about the Duke.
Those controllers are very, very similar.
I played a lot of Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast. Like, excessive amounts of Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast. I mean, like, really, in the grand scheme of things, that was probably my first MMO. Seeing as how I played EverQuest after that.
Right.
And, like, while I had piddled a little bit with Ultima Online, I never really played it seriously because I couldn't bring myself to pay for it. I've been playing, like, a Phantasy Star Online emulator client thing a little bit lately.
Yeah, how is that?
It's really good for what it is, but man, you've probably forgotten how primitive Phantasy Star Online was, because I certainly had.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this opportunity to complain that PSO2 exists, but not on this side of the Pacific.
But there are complicated guides on how to sign up. That's the screwed up thing, is like there's English versions of the game that you can play.
The client has been fan translated because Sega won't translate it, but you can't sign up unless you are Japanese.
Yep. At least Dragon Quest X is supposedly going to come over here eventually.
Why?
Because Dragon Quest MMO?
I heard that was coming out on the Switch.
I think so.
11 is due soonish on PS4 and 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know the story, but I guess I don't know the story between Dragon Quest X. Is there actually a story there worth experiencing?
I get the impression that there is.
I mean, because I guess FF14 is FF14 at this point probably has more plot than FF13.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if there's like a full Dragon Quest game there, then they should definitely bring it over, and I'll give it a shot.
I'm just.
But at this point, it's going to be
Dragon
a
Quest
years
I'm not
late.
allowed to play.
That too. At this point, it's going to be a years late PC port of what was originally a Wii game.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a looker. That art style is really not saving it because it just does not look like a modern game anymore.
It's been so long since I've touched anything Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest. And probably the last one I played was Dragon Warrior 4 on the Nintendo.
That is a long time. You should try 8.
What platform
is available? It's on everything.
It's on everything.
Literally everything.
Like PC as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Mobile devices. Yes. Everything. You probably don't want to play it on a mobile device. It might be okay. I don't know.
I mean, it's on the 3DS too. I mean, it'll probably be okay on a mobile device, but it's on everything except Switch.
I like that more things are getting PC ports, just because, I mean, I would probably prefer to play most games on the PC.
It's nice to at least have the option. It's nicer if the PC port is actually, a good port, because a good number of them aren't.
So we lied. Dragon Quest VIII is actually not on the PC.
Huh.
Get my hopes up.
PS2, mobile, 3DS. I am surprised it is not on the PC, because Squares loves putting their mobile releases on PC.
Yeah. I mean, they've been putting all their stuff on PC recently. Like, I just picked up Dragon Quest Heroes. I haven't played it yet. Well, Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
I think 2 is a much better game than 1.
That's what I've heard.
I picked up both for PS4. I guess you might like 1 better if you like tower defense more than I do.
Eh.
Speaking of Warriors games, though, Fire Emblem Warriors is coming out next month for the Switch.
What's that?
It is, I guess, another game in the vein of Hyrule Warriors, in that they're just finding a whole bunch of characters and sticking them together and giving them an excuse to go fight each other in a Warriors-type game.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes more sense for Fire Emblem than
Probably.
Zelda?
Because
Yeah,
those
but Zelda's
games are
fun.
already like somewhat strategic and have decisions like that you need to make. But Hyrule Warriors is also one of the best examples of that type of game. So here's hoping that the new one will also be good.
What platform was the first Dynasty Warriors for? Was
The
it
first Dynasty
Super
Warriors?
Nintendo?
PS2.
Okay.
Wait, no. PS1. Sorry.
Yeah, PS2 sounds too recent.
I know I owned a copy on PS2 of a Dynasty Warriors game.
I want to say 3 through 5 were PS2. 6 was the first one for PS3, and it was awful. 8 was pretty good. 7, I hear, was pretty good, but I didn't buy it because of how bad 6 was. 9 is due out soonish, and they're making it more of an open world type game. And I have no idea how that's going to work, but it will be a large change of pace for the series.
It never ceases to amaze me how many different versions of the Warriors games there are, and for how many different properties.
I mean, it does seem to be kind of the default put your licensed property into a game at this point. For anything, vaguely anime at least.
The funny part about that to me is that it's actually the same team making all of them. Like, when they get hired to make One Piece Warriors, it's still Omega Force doing it.
I mean, sure, they have to sprite swap somehow. No, I mean, like, the thing that amazes me about it, though, is each one of them feels slightly different. I mean, I would expect them to feel like absolute 100% retreads, but they don't always.
I mean, how many characters are in Dynasty Warriors now? Like, I don't actually know the answer to that question.
It's nonsense.
But it's
like
such
70?
that actually sounds too low.
That sounds way too low. I think it's in the hundreds.
That may be a few episodes back.
But
How
most
many
of these
episodes?
characters have unique movesets. So they have something like 75 unique movesets just in Dynasty Warriors. And then they come up with more because Link has his own moveset that includes things like the spin attack and charging around on his horse and whatever else they decide to use.
Dynasty Warriors 8 has 83 characters.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So I wasn't too far off.
I think the 100-something number I had seen was characters
Warriors
that
Orochi.
Yeah, Warriors Orochi, I think. Which isn't that basically kind of a greatest hits collection of Warriors games?
Warriors Orochi 3 is we stuck Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors together, and then stuck a whole bunch of other characters from Tecmo properties in there.
Yep.
So there are 145 characters in Warriors Orochi 3. I don't know, it's definitely a weird series. And I think the good ones are good, but the bad ones are really, really bad. 6, they decided that the whole light attack, heavy attack thing was not terribly interesting, and trashed it. So a whole bunch of the characters controlled basically the same. Combo chains didn't exist. And while I say that the strategic layer is the more important part of the game most of the time, the rest of the game still has to be fun to play. And 6 really wasn't. Oh, Warriors Orochi 3 is also coming out for the Switch. For some reason.
Because people have found that it is very profitable to port things to the Switch.
It's looking like there are going to be more Switches sold than PS4s by the end of the year.
I'm not surprised.
In Japan.
I mean,
not so much here.
Yeah.
The units are available now, at least. Like,
That's
they're for the
surprising that
longest
there
time.
are more Switches than PS4s.
I'm just saying, like, I since the Switch was announced, and since the shipments started coming out, I've done this thing that anytime I've gone to a store, just out of curiosity, I see it if they have a Switch, like, even after buying one. And it was only within, like, the last month that I started regularly seeing them sitting on store shelves.
I saw some this week, and I think I saw someone on Twitter mention that they saw some this week. But that's the first time I've seen them since I picked mine up.
I mean, I tweeted out, like, about a month and a half ago, the first one I had ever seen in the wild. But since then, I've seen, like, I think the most I've seen was 5 in a store. And they had, like, 2 red and blues and 3 gray consoles. But there's been a lot of publishers that have come out and said that they sold more on the Switch than they sold on, like, Steam. And I think it's simply because there's a very limited number of games currently available for the Switch. And if you're a really good game on a platform that people are looking for things to buy to, in part, justify their purchase of a new console, then you're probably going to sell a lot of games.
I think it was the devs of Wonder Boy who said that.
Yeah. And Wonder Boy on the Switch is great.
But it certainly got a lot of attention for being one of the first games on the platform.
Yup. I've been playing Sonic on the Switch, and it's great. Like, it feels awesome. Like, it does a really good job of that style of 2D platformer game. I've also heard that Doom is running on the Switch and is extremely playable. Not Doom as in, like, classic Doom, but the modern...
The recent Doom.
Recent Vulcan Doom. It only runs at 30 frames per second, and it runs at a fairly low resolution, but they said all of the Doomy feeling capabilities of it, are kind of there. I mean, so ultimately, I guess that means that, what ID Tech 6 or whatever they're currently on is running on that platform. So any of the games that have come out on it will, in theory, be able to work. There was talk of porting Wolf 2 to the Switch.
I think Bethesda sees some money in getting their things on this platform.
I think they do, and I
don't understand why Capcom doesn't, though.
I don't understand why other people aren't interested in general in this platform.
I mean, I guess they do, because... Okay, two reasons. Reason one, the Wii U exists, and so there is some hesitancy to invest in Nintendo's next project.
Right.
Reason two, which is the hilarious reason to me, is that cartridges are more expensive to produce than discs, which apparently affects the bottom line for some publishers.
Look, just release it digitally on the eShop and be done.
Or
There's
you
plenty
can take
of games for the
Puyo
Switch
Puyo
that
decided
don't exist.
to... Like, Puyo Puyo has a digital release and a physical release, and the physical release costs more for that reason. But it's resulting in some very weird things. Like, I want to say NBA Jam is not playable with just its cart, because they didn't want to pay for a cart big enough to put the game on.
Yes, it has to... It needs more space than the storage space the unit ships with.
So you need to have an SD card, and yeah, it's on an 8 gig cart, 4 gig cart, and the game is larger than that, so you need to download the rest of the game once you put it in your system. The Switch is leading to all sorts of weird things.
I mean, I feel like the correct answer is just buy a sufficiently large SD card and go eShop for most of these.
I feel like going mostly digital on a portable is just easier, because you don't need to carry stuff around.
Well, and there's the whole aspect of, like, having lots of different things on tap to fit whatever mood you happen to be in at the time. And then again, like, I'm almost exclusively digital regardless of the platform. If there's a digital option, yes, I want to take this thing.
I have a fair number of physical PS4 games and very, very few physical 3DS games.
The only negative about the 3DS is that the download speed from the eShop is so slow. It took forever to download. I'm trying to think what the last big thing I downloaded was. Sun and Moon. Yeah.
Those are huge games.
Yeah, it took forever to download.
For the most part with 3DS games, I try to get them downloaded ahead of time, because for first-party games, they let you do that.
I wish there were more consistent policies on preloading games in general, like across the board, because most places will let you do it, but as to how far ahead is totally random. And I realize a lot of that's up to the publishers when they actually get them the stuff to preload, but...
Also, the game has to be done.
It would be really nice to at least know going in that, it comes out on this date, and on this date you should be able to preload some assets.
I feel like some publishers are worried about security in preloads. I want to say things have leaked from preloads before, but I looked it up and nothing has ever leaked from a Steam preload.
That doesn't mean they don't fear that it will.
Well, one of the ones that I dealt with recently was the Destiny 2 PC Alpha preload. Like, they downloaded everything but the executable. And then on the day it released, the executable came down. Now, that's great if you use proper asset management with your game, and you're not like Guild Wars 2 where you're basically just a giant executable. Or at least I think they're still just a giant executable.
Guild Wars 2 has one file called gw2.dat, which is not the executable, but is most of the installation.
Yeah, okay. I knew it was like one big file.
WildStar also did that.
That's a horrible idea.
I mean, why?
I don't know. Like, I just don't like the concept of if something gets corrupted, you have to re-download everything, because files do occasionally get corrupted.
But likely the entire file isn't going to get corrupted, and that's what their repair tool is specifically for.
Right.
Because in theory, it's some kind of archive, like giant archive.
I think it's more than in theory, because people have dug into it.
I remember, like, with a lot of not Bethesda games, id Software games, they would be archived up in whatever their archive of the game happened to be, but if you extracted them out, they ran a hell of a lot faster. Like, I remember that was definitely a thing with Doom 3.
The only archivey thing I sort of remember is messing with MPQs when World of Warcraft was installed with them. I think they now use something else, but they used to use the same compression that they used during Warcraft 3, so tools from around that time could open them up and see what all the models looked like and all the files. I know people still do that, but I don't think it's quite as easy anymore.
I'm pretty sure WoW Model Viewer is still a thing. I mean, a bunch of Chinese mobile publishers have stolen their assets straight from those files, so...
Sure.
Because you made me curious, I went and looked what the Guild Wars 2 file is up to now with Path of Fire. It is now 34 gigs.
It's craziness, I tell you. Craziness.
I remember when my entire hard drive was 40 megs. So yeah.
The first time I got a computer that was actually my computer, it had a hard drive that was 13 gigabytes.
I don't remember how much storage space my first computer that was all mine was, but I remember our first family computer had an 80 meg hard drive, and we thought it was going to, last forever.
And 64K of RAM, because who'll ever need more?
Ours was smooth. We had 2 meg of RAM, 2 separate 1 meg chips. But I think the weirdest thing that I ever owned, computing wise, was the Disney Sound Source. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but it was basically like a combination sound card and PC speaker that hooked up to a parallel port.
I had that thing.
And gave you mono audio out of your computer for when you didn't have a sound card.
Right.
I had that thing because I did not have a sound card.
I never had one, but I remember it being on the, the list of options to select from alongside Sound Blaster and AdLib and Roland.
Roland, the card that no one actually had because it was so insanely expensive. I actually didn't know anybody that had an AdLib card either.
No, I remember sometimes using the AdLib settings on some games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never knew anybody that actually had one.
I think for the most part, everyone had a Sound Blaster or a Sound Blaster knockoff.
Yeah. Yeah, either Sound Blaster or Turtle Beach.
Which is in part why I think it's so sad that Sound Blaster, for the most part, makes USB speakers now, and Turtle Beach makes somewhat low-end console headsets.
I wouldn't call that the low end.
Well, I mean, okay, so sure, they're expensive, but I mean, they're not the highest quality of headsets.
Sure.
So maybe low grade. But it's like sad to me because these were juggernauts of my, PC gaming youth. I also wonder what the hell happened to Diamond, because my first video card that I bought as a separate video card was a Diamond Stealth.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about them.
And I'm pretty sure it was Diamond that made the weirdest of all computer peripherals in concert with Sound Blaster, the 3DO Blaster.
I'm afraid to ask what that even is.
It let you turn your PC into a 3DO compatible machine. It was like a special CD-ROM that would read 3DO discs.
I mean, it was actually a 3DO board to stick into your computer. It wasn't an emulator. It was it was the actual 3DO internals.
It was an ISA board that you stuck in your computer and you hooked it up to a special CD-ROM drive. So like if you had it in with other stuff, you would have like an ISA sound card and an ISA 3DO board and then 2 CD-ROM drives.
So Diamond still exists and still makes computer parts, including graphics cards.
Yes, you just never hear about them because, there's the big 2 and then everybody else.
No. They make Radeon graphics cards.
Oh, okay.
But even at that, it's not one of the brands that I hear of often from Radeon cards, like Power Color or Sapphire, I think, is another big one that I hear about a lot.
Sapphire is a big one. My last Radeon card came from them. Also, the answer might be someone is just using the name because I think the original Diamond seems to have gone out of business about, in around 2000, and its brand was purchased in 2003.
So kind of like you can go to compusa.com and it's actually Tiger Direct?
Kind of like that, yes.
And I think they also bought Circuit City. I could go way deeper in the things, nostalgia type stuff, and completely,
I'll be honest, I'm a little lost.
Yeah. Well, like the other day, I was sitting around thinking, man, a store like Surface Merchandise would do really well now.
I don't know what that is.
Like if Amazon had a store like Surface Merchandise that they put around the country.
Yeah.
So, okay, Surface Merchandise was this weird concept where it was a store that you went in and none of the merchandise was on there was one of everything on the shelf, and it basically was a showroom, and you either had to order it or they had some limited stock there in the store.
Yeah, and there were slips of paper that you grab and take, and then they'd check you out, and then you'd have to go wait for your items to be found in the back and come out on a little conveyor belt and given to you.
Or if it wasn't available in store, it would sign it up for delivery, and you would get one shipped to you.
Like, I really kind of expect the catalog store to make a resurgence, because like I can see that being a thing for bigger ticket items where you actually want to see the thing and maybe try it out / try it on for clothing.
I mean, that's a lot of the reason why I continue to go to like Fry's. Anytime I'm in Dallas, I go to Fry's, just because there's some random things that I've seen before, but I've never actually seen in person. Like, I went to Micro Center last time I was in Kansas City because there was a case that I was looking at because I thought it looked like really cool. It's that square one that has
discovered that
all
those
the
Corsair cases are gigantic.
Yes, they're insanely huge. There's
They
no
are.
way I have room for that under my desk, and I am glad I was able to do that. Similarly, like those racer chairs, like those aren't that comfortable. I only know that because like I've seen them at Fry's and I've seen them at various conventions. So I think I really do think a catalog shop, like a showroom, would do well nowadays. The only problem is it would have to be tied to an Amazon or something along those lines, because otherwise you're just going to have the problem that you have with Best Buy right now, where people go in to look at stuff in Best Buy and then go home and order on Amazon. Or hell, order in the store on Amazon.
What do you mean? I've never done this thing. What are you talking
Mostly
about?
what got me thinking about it was like the whole Toys R Us bankruptcy thing and how
Yep.
magical Toys R Us used to be. And so much of it was the fact that like you could go to Toys R Us and like your local Walmart may have 4 or 5 Nintendo games, but you go to Toys R Us and they literally have every Nintendo game that was on the market at that time.
I mean,
And
now
they were-
you're.
At that time, I didn't have a local Walmart.
I was about to say, also, your local Walmart probably has all the games now.
Yeah, that's a change that's happened. But like I remember there was the wall of games and there were the little slips that you had to go take to the magical booth where they would then get your item for you.
Yep.
And now Toys R Us is when you go in are completely empty. Like nobody's actually there.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
I want to say I was in one earlier this year for something.
I go to
Yeah,
them
I
fairly
was.
regularly.
I was because I needed a birthday present, and I needed it, the next day. But that's basically the only time I go in Toys R Us at this point.
I go if I'm near one, just because they sometimes have weird stuff that I've not seen.
It is going to be weird having a kid who is never going to grow up being a Toys R Us kid.
I learned how to spell Toys R Us really fast. So my parents tried to do the whole spell talking thing, and that only worked for so long.
But like, because yeah, I used to go in there, and honestly, probably very successfully, it meant I got to see a lot of things that I didn't even know existed, and get me interested in buying even more things. So, successful business model. I guess I'm okay that my kid doesn't have it, but like, that was sort of my reward, was I got to go to Toys R Us.
Well, and their claim to fame was the fact that they had, like, literally everything of a thing. So, like, if you were into Legos, they had everything that was available that year, and usually some stuff that was hanging out from the previous year. If you were into He-Man, they had every item in the He-Man lineup. And nobody has that kind of holistic entire product line stock anymore, except for Amazon.
Yep.
Even then, not always. But that's sort of where marketplaces fills in the gaps.
Yeah, and you can always tell the difference because, like, you'll go from $9.99.99.50 9 in the pricing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But even for random things, like almost every Gundam you can buy is probably on Amazon, sold by someone that is not Amazon.com. And the prices vary based on how old it is and how rare they were, but they're not going to be that much worse than you would find at a local store. In fact, they're probably going to be significantly better.
Hell, honestly, finding something that sells Gundams around me is hell. Like, that's just not a thing that's around here. I mean, we have Hobbytown USA, and that's about it, I think. Saw that Target has Nindroids, which shocked the hell out of me.
That's weird.
They were Breath of the Wild ones, so I'm sure this is a limited case, but
Right.
still, it's really weird to see that in a store. Since our pauses keep getting longer that are going to get edited out, do we have anything else we want to talk about before we start to wrap things up?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think so too. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Good night.